Hello, this is Andrew River. I'm here with Ash Harrison. We're doing his life story and his numismatic interview. Good morning.
Morning.
How did you get started collecting coins? Did you start? Have you always collected? Did you start when you were very young? What got you interested?
Well, my grandfather was somewhat of a coin collector, and in the early 60s, I got started as a young child, about 5 years old. He had a bag full of coins, basically a salesman's bag full of old coins that he had collected. It's possible that his father had collected a number of them as well. And he put together some sets of cents and nickels, and he had a bunch of coins from all the countries that he visited while he was traveling around with his wife. And I was fascinated with them, and he helped me start a number of those Blue Whitman albums, and we put those together for a number of years. Also, my great aunts were instrumental in helping me get started because they kept all of their Lincoln cents that had wheat. They kept all of their silver, and they kept all of the Kennedy halves that they came upon. And I would go over to their house in High Point, North Carolina, and I would be visiting from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, which is where I was born and grew up. And my parents would take me over there, and that would be one of the things that we would do for a day is sleeve up pennies and go through the change. And I would rack up because I was 5 to 7 years old, and I thought I was rich. So it was really fun. But that's how I got started.
Did you? So your grandfather. Now this was you were born in what year?
61.
61. So this was the middle 60s when silver was still fine.
Exactly.
Still find silver in circulation.
Yeah, we would find, not only would we find some silver, we would find an occasional Indian head cent, an occasional buffalo nickel. They had a handful of Standing Liberty quarters in a desk at their house that were just in the drawer. It was my great grandfather's desk, and I was absolutely fascinated by those things. They were worn absolutely flat. You could barely make out the date, but I was fascinated with them, and I thought they were super valuable.
When was that first coin shop you went to?
First coin shop. Well, when I was between 10 and 12 years old, there was a coin shop in Gold Hill, North Carolina. It was Charlie Helderman's shop, and Charlie had a little, I want to call it almost like a hut. It was little more than the size of the room that we're in right now, which is about 10 feet by 12 feet. And it was just a little building. It had, shingled roof and everything, but it was on the lot of an Esso station right there on Highway 52 in Gold Hill, North Carolina. Gold Hill is, if you don't, I know a few people might know that little place, but it literally is one of those towns in North Carolina that has Gold Hill on both sides of the sign. You're driving down Highway 52, you see the sign Gold Hill, there's a post office next to it, and if you're coming the other direction, same thing, Gold Hill on the other side of the sign. So that was, but he had number of coins, and the first coin I ever bought was in his shop, and it was an 1810 $half that may have been fine, but it fascinated me as well.
So it was pretty small. You didn't obviously have a paper route or anything.
No, as a kid, I started racing motocross as about a 10-year-old, and I guess I was between 10 and 12 I started racing. And I traveled down to Rowan County every weekend and did that with my father, and he raced as well. And that was what I did when I was a kid. And I made money doing that because I raced professionally for a number of years. So,
wow.
Yeah.
When you got into high school, were you still collecting coins? Or?
I was collecting girls mostly in high school. I can't say that I did well, but I at least was intrigued, and I didn't have a lot of extra money, and what I did, I spent with my buddies, and so I slowed down a lot during high school. I started picking back up in the end of my college days. So,
where'd you go to college?
I went to college right here in Greensboro, North Carolina. I went to Guilford College. It's across the street. It's to my left. It's literally about 200 yards away. We're here at my coin shop, and it's right here on Friendly Avenue in Greensboro. I went to Guilford, and then after I went to Guilford, I moved down to Atlanta, and I finished out at Georgia Tech.
Did you have any, were there any coin shops that you went to when you were going to college? Did you try to collect
Yes.
it all, or try to learn or study, or?
Yeah, I did. I mostly here in Greensboro before I ever went to Atlanta. Atlanta was very sparse when it comes to coin shops. In fact, to this day, I only know a couple. But here in Greensboro, there were several coin shops, and one of them was Jackson Coin. And James Jackson, he was in the business from about 1955, and he'd been there at least 30 years at the time. And he did more than just set up at shows. He would go to the gun shows and flea markets and things like that. And he set up, and he had lots of coins in binders, and they were in these colored flips. And he printed those flips. And I think he may have made more money on flips than he did on coins. But he had these orange pumpkin colored flips and light blue and light green flips. And, I see those things all the time. And I always wonder whether there were a bunch of people printing those things, but I know he must have sold millions of them. But he sold those flips, and he also sold those magnetic signs, and he had them everywhere at his shop. I mean, every clever little phrase you could find, and, we sell coins and things like that, but he had those machines right there in his shop. So.
Wow. So you've been a researcher, you've been a numismatist, a collector, and now a dealer. When did you get the bug per se for silver dollars? You're a very advanced collector of silver dollars and silver dollar varieties and stuff like that. And when did that first start?
Now, I liked silver dollars before I got into the varieties of silver dollars, and so I was constantly looking at them. And around 1996, Jeff Oxman and Michael Fay put out the Top 100 VAMs book. And it's this, if those that don't know, it's about a 4-inch by 5 or 4 by 6-inch book with 100 different varieties of Morgan dollars that they considered a top 100. Now, it's not really the hardest 100 VAMs. It's a little misleading in the title, because it was really a collection of Morgans that were interesting, things that had unusual things that you go, hey, look at that, that's neat. And so about a third of those coins are tough, about a third of them are relatively medium difficulty, and some of them are easy. But I started looking at that book in 96, and I started searching for some of them, and about 1998, I was in a shop in Asheboro, North Carolina, and I looked down, and there was an 1888 Hot Lips in his case. It was about uncirculated and slightly proof-like, which is really unusual for Hot Lips. And I had to bite my tongue, but I asked him to look at it, and sure enough, it was the right thing. Only problem with it, every single coin in this guy's case was dipped and cleaned in ketchup, and probably some baking soda as well, because they all had light hairlines everywhere. I took that coin, I bought that coin, I treasured that little devil, and took that to a show. I guess it was the ANA, more than likely, and actually went to the one of those talks that Jeff Oxman and Michael Fay would put on VAMs, and I showed that coin to them, and they were pretty well amazed by the fact that it was proof-like, and that really set the bug. I started doing varieties at that point, and haven't really looked back since.
Wow. So you do have a fairly extensive collection then of the VAM varieties.
I do. I have. It's a really difficult thing to describe because there are probably 4,000 VAM varieties. I mean, every Morgan dollar is a VAM. They're all a pair of dies. Literally, any VAM is just a pair of dies in some stage, and but there are about 400, roughly 400 of them that PCGS will grade, and I worked pretty hard with Jeff Oxman and a number of other guys who, worked to put together some of these books that the top 100, the hot 50 Morgans, the hit list 40 Morgans, the top 100, no, top 50 piece dollars, and another 40 piece dollars. We put together those books as the Society of Silver Dollar Collectors, and PCGS, once we got a book completed, they would add those to what they grade. There are about 400 or so that they do, and I have collected, I have every one of those coins that PCGS will grade. There's only 2 people who've ever completed that, and I did finish that about a year and a half ago.
Who's the other person?
Andy, oh man, what's Andy's last name? What's the guy's name that does the massive collector of every U.S. coin right now? He's trying to complete them all. Not ringing a bell. Andy, it's Andy something. Anyway, Andy, sorry I can't remember your name if you're listening. Anyway, he's got the number 1 set. He actually has them in higher grades than I have them, and I finished them first though. But anyway, yeah, there's 2 guys that have finished that set, and it's really difficult. So now that's nowhere near all the VAMs, but it's I probably have about 1,500 or so.
Wow. So for your numismatic career, you graduated college, you were an engineer, and then when did you become a full-time coin dealer? Did you start part-time and work your way up?
I did. I don't know if you can really start as, decide one day you're going to be a coin dealer and open up a shop. I started actually dealing coins, and literally when I was a teenager. I'd buy and sell coins to friends and to dealers, and that was in the mid 70s. And I actually really started doing it what I would consider full-time. When I had a full-time job, I was doing full-time coins because I was working from the time I got off of work till late in the, like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I was going on eBay, buying and selling coins, and I did that until about 1999, and then I, quote, retired from my telecom career in, I guess, 2001. And I worked as a vest pocket dealer until about 2008, and then I opened a shop.
So you came back home to where you went to college, and
I did that right out of college. I came back from Georgia in 1986, and that's when I started working for AT&T. AT&T sent me around the world, putting in telecommunications for the military mostly. But we did an enormous job for the United States Treasury from about 1989 to about 1994. It was about a 40,000 line telephone switch, and so we did the Treasury. There's lots of bureaus underneath the Treasury. There's the Mint, the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, U.S. Secret Service, U.S. Customs, the IRS, Financial Management Services. They're all part of the Treasury, or were all part of the Treasury at that time. And they've since split it in a different direction and added Homeland Security and things like that. But anyway, we put in that switch for 4 or 5 years, and I got to work on the floor of the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, standing beside stacks and stacks of $100 bills with an armed guard. So that was all really fun.
Wow. Wow. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little break right now, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit about some things that have happened here in your store, and some things that you found, and then we'll go later in this series. We'll go into some show and tell. So we're going to take a break. If you like what you're seeing, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.